So for people out there who are interested in sleep-related supplements, I've reviewed 10 different well-known sleep supplements. I give the dosages. I tell you all how they work. I tell you when you should use them, all that kind of stuff. We're going to give those people, if they do the VIP routine, they're going to get the VIP reading material. And we think that has a lot to do with sleep supplementation. So I think you guys will learn a lot.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Thrive State Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. V, triple board certified MD and performance and longevity expert. And on today's podcast, I have a very special guest, a world's guru in the realm of sleep, Dr. Michael Breus. He is actually a good friend of mine. He is known internationally as somebody who really understands sleep at all its level. And certainly sleep isn't just what we do, it's the environment we actually get into when we're pairing to rejuvenate ourselves. Sleep is the first bioenergetic element I talk about in my book, Thrive State. And if you haven't picked it up, go to thrivestatebook.com. But it's so important to rejuvenate us, for us to consolidate our thoughts and our memories. So it leads to better health. It leads to more happiness. It elevates our human potential. But how do we get sleep? So many of us are burdened by chronic stress or just how we get through modern life every day. And our bodies think that we are in danger when we're trying to go to bed. And we're having such a hard time. People are not falling asleep well. They're waking up in the middle of the night and they're just not getting restful, rejuvenative sleep. And on today's podcast, I really want to bring an expert in so that you can have a couple tools under your tool belt to be able to truly master your sleep. Before we get into the conversation, if you are new to the podcast, welcome in. This is the Thrive State Podcast. I am Dr. V. This is where I bring thought leaders, world experts on the topics of health, longevity, wellness, peak performance, so that you can elevate you to the next level. So why do I do this? Because I have a 4-year-old daughter. And I really do believe that we are all connected. We are all as one. And in the future, if we truly understand this, and if truly everybody lived up to their potential, the world would be such a more beautiful place, much more harmonious place, much more loving place. And that's a place I want for her to grow up in. So, I have a very selfish reason for wanting everyone to live up to their potential. And I hope you do as well. And so I wish nothing but health and happiness for you. This is why I do what I do. And so if you're continuing to listen, please do us a favor by subscribing to the podcast, engaging with it, sharing this podcast with your friends and family members, like and commenting. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star review wherever podcasts are heard. That's really going to help us out. And as a free gift, I want to share with you just things that you need to get started in your performance and longevity route, breathwork exercises, lecture notes, ebooks, all to you for free, just for listening. Go to thrivestatestarter.com to pick that up. And on to today's podcast. Now, today's podcast, we're really going to talk about sleep. I bring the foremost expert of sleep to have this conversation. And it's really a conversation I had in the Thrive State Summit, where I got a chance to interview 50 of the world's thought leaders in mental and emotional wellness, including Vishen Lakhiani, Dave Asprey, Jim Quick, to give you those thoughts and insights. All these things actually could be found in digital courses that we have on our back end. And if you want access to that, in fact, if you're a listener to this podcast, go ahead, help yourself to 50% off all digital courses by using the code ThriveState50 when you go to mythrivestate.com/pro. So to get all the digital assets, go to mythrivestate.com/pro and use the code ThriveState50 to receive 50% off. Now, I'm going to make the introduction in the conversation, so please enjoy this conversation with myself and sleep expert, Dr. Michael Breus. Back to another session here at the Thrive State Summit. I'm with good friend here, Dr. Michael J. Breus. And not only has he been a good friend, mentor, he's a double certified clinical psychologist with clinical sleep specialist. And he's actually only one of 168 psychologists in the world to have taken and passed the sleep medicine boards without ever going to medical school. I know a lot of doctors are jealous. Dr. Breus is the author of 4 books, with his newest book being Energize, Going from Dragging Ass. Dr. Breus is the author of 4 books, with his newest book, Energize, Go from Dragging Ass to Kicking It in 30 Days. He has the concepts of movement, intermittent fasting to his already famous sleep chronotypes, which you'll all learn about in a second. It was recently named one of the top books in 2021 by the Today Show. And his third book, this is a game changer. The Power of When is actually a groundbreaking biohacking book that proves that there's a perfect time to do anything. Eat, have sex, work, all those things. He's an expert resource for major publications, doing more than 400 interviews per year. And I'm so grateful that he's here with us, giving us his expertise on sleep. Please welcome Michael Breus. Michael, welcome.
Thanks, Kien. Always a pleasure to hang out with you, brother.
I just wanted to let people know everybody has an intuitive sense of just how important sleep is to our energy and mental health.
Right.
But let's break it down some more. We know that people are actually in a vicious cycle where if they're not getting good sleep, they don't have energy to do the things that they want. They're probably stressed out, and that leads to, more bad sleep. Tell us how everything ties together.
So there's a lot of different ways. In my newest book, Energize, the first thing we had to do was define energy, right? Because it's like, well, what is it? It's kind of like sleep. It's this amorphous word that seems to represent this thing that we all seem to have. And it turns out there's a lot of different types of energy, right? So there's physical energy, there's emotional energy, there's spiritual energy. There's all kinds of energy. And so when we start to think about it, it tells us a lot about how sleep affects an individual. Because to be fair, we know a lot about when you're not sleeping, what it does to your body, but we don't really have great data on what happens when you do sleep, right? So we much better understand sleep deprivation than we really do a well-slept human. And I got to be honest with you, there's not a lot of well-slept people out there.
Let's talk a little bit about the stats. What percentage of Americans or the people around the world are sleep deprived at this point?
Bro, it's redonkulous. I would say we're probably north of 80% of the population. Because if you think about it like this, right? Let's just look at the US population for just a second, right? So we know that roughly, 75% of the US population is overweight, with almost 50% of it being obese. Right there, we know that that group of people has a very high likelihood for a sleep disorder called sleep apnea, right? And we know that even if they have a minor amount of sleep apnea, they're sleeping like crap, right? And so we know they're sleep deprived. And that's, quite a few people out there, right? Anybody that snores, 50% of the people, 18% of the male population, 12% of the female population. And so we know a lot of people aren't sleeping well from a sleep apnea perspective, but an even bigger is insomnia. So we know that insomnia affects 30% of the entire population at any given time, with 10% of it being chronic. For a definition of insomnia, guys, the way I think about it is hard time falling asleep, hard time staying asleep, or waking up too early and not being able to return back to sleep, right? So if we just looked at those numbers, it's almost everyone. And let's be fair. When's the last time somebody turned to you and said, man, I got the best night's sleep last night. I feel like $1 million.
Yeah. That's true. And so those numbers don't surprise me. So what can people expect? What are basically some of the symptoms as it pertains to energy and mental health with deprivation? And what is the research showing now that when people are well rested, what can they expect?
Well, so we have to figure out how to define well rested. And I think it comes down into 3 different categories. So it's how long, so quantity, right? Quality, are you getting the depth of sleep that you're looking for? And timing. When are you actually sleeping? Because it turns out, and you know this as well as I do, is we have this genetic code inside our bodies that tells us when we're supposed to sleep and when we're supposed to wake up. Now, many people may not know this. It's called a chronotype. Might not have heard of the word, but you've probably heard of the concept before. If anybody out there has ever been called an early bird or a night owl, those are chronotypes. So it turns out we've always known that there have been 3. Early bird, what we call people in the middle, we call them hummingbirds. I have no idea why we call them hummingbirds. It seems like a really stupid name, but we were on the bird motif, I guess, at that point in time. And night owls. My contribution to the literature is I found a 4th chronotype, which I call a dolphin. So I changed the names of all of them and turned them into animals. And each animal actually represents the chronotype that they are part of. So lions represent early birds because lions wake up early in the morning, first kill before dawn, the whole thing. Hummingbirds, we call them bears now because they're kind of like a bear. They get up around, 7:30 in the morning. They go to bed around 10 o'clock at night. It's actually the best to be a bear. I kind of wish I was a bear. I'm not. I'm a wolf, which is a night owl. I like to stay up late and sleep late. Although once I hit like 50, 52, everything started to want to go backwards. Like, you ever notice when you ask your grandparents or your parents when they want to go out to dinner, they say 4:30, 5 o'clock? That's because their melatonin is going earlier. And so mine is actually starting to shift. So I was a wolf. Now I'm more of a lion. And then the problem children, who I call dolphins, right? And so they have difficulty falling asleep, staying asleep. They have difficulty with anxiety. So once you learn your chronotype, exactly when to sleep. And so I take all of that guesswork out of it for you. Now, I have heard this happening a lot lately. I was talking to a friend of mine, former NFL linebacker, big guy, just a specimen of a fellow, right? And he says to me, I said, how do you sleep? And he says, Michael, I sleep my 8 hours every night. I said, great. I said, what time do you go to bed? He said, oh, it changes every night. I said, well, what time do you wake up? He said, oh, it changes every morning. Bro, this is not the way to do it. So what he would do is whatever time he was ready to go to bed, he would set his alarm for 8 hours later, and then he would wake up. Okay, number one, that's not the real world, right? He was a professional athlete, so he probably had a little extra time on his hands in the morning time. But that's not how you do it. It's about consistency, right? And consistency. And if people get one thing from my whole talk today, here's the one piece of information that they want to remember. Wake up at the same time 7 days a week. This actually helps with sleep deprivation in a lot of ways, because if you wake up at the same time, you're almost guaranteed higher quality sleep. And if you're guaranteed higher quality sleep, then you don't need as much quantity of sleep. Follow my experiment. So I was writing the book and I figured, you know what, I better figure this out for myself. So I said, I'm a night owl. I'm going to make sure I go to bed every night at midnight. I'm not going to use an alarm, see what happens, right? So I went to bed at midnight. I was waking up at 7:30, 8 o'clock. And then a week goes by and now all of a sudden I'm waking up at 7:15. Then another 3 weeks go by, I'm waking up at 6:45. Bro, I'm going to bed at midnight. I'm waking up at 6:45. I'm wondering, like, what the hell is wrong with me, right? But what had happened was my sleep began to consolidate because I was getting such high quality sleep at the right time for my genetic chronotype. This is the big kind of evolution that I've discovered that I've been working with my patients on. It's kind of the thing I'm now known for is if I can figure out your chronotype, which isn't too hard to do, go to chronoquiz.com. And I've got 30 questions on the internet, then we can figure it out type of thing. There's actually what I call a genetic, I don't know, it's like a swim lane, right? Like you ever do laps at the pool and like there's the fast lane, the medium lane, and the slow lane, and you know which lane you're in? This is your sleep lane, if you will. Actually tells us basically what time you want to go to bed and what time you want to wake up. The wake up is important though, and I want to emphasize that point more than anything, and here's why. When you wake up in the morning, your eyes open up, sunlight comes in and hits your eyeballs, and you have a very specific type of cell called a melanopsin cell in your eye. This is very sensitive to blue light in particular, this frequency of 460 to 480 nanometers, which comes from every type of light bulb. It's not actually blue. They just call it blue light. But here's what's interesting is when it hits your eyeball, it turns off the melatonin faucet in your brain. Completely shuts it down. That helps get rid of brain fog, all that stuff much better. But your brain sets a timer for approximately 14 hours later to start melatonin production again. So follow this. You're waking up at 6 a.m. during the week, all week long. 14 hours is 8 p.m. Melatonin starts to kick off. It takes about 90 minutes for it to get into gear. About 9:30, 10 o'clock, you're feeling sleepy, so you go to bed. But if you didn't wake up at 6, but you woke up at 8 instead, because it was Saturday morning, you decided to sleep in, melatonin doesn't kick off at 8, it kicks off at 10 because it's 14 hours later. Your brain can't tell time, but it can set a timer. That's the real big revelation here. And so what ends up happening, you don't get tired until almost, 8, 9, 10 o'clock. Your melatonin doesn't kick off until 11:30. You're not going to bed until 12:30, 1 o'clock, all because you slept in 8 hours, which forms this feedback loop. And now you're kind of in the washing machine for sleep. So the quality and the quantity are tied to the chronotype is kind of the big thing that I've learned through my several years. So it was really kind of revolutionary for me. Once I figured out my chronotype, I was like, holy crap, what else can I do during the daytime? That's perfect timing because my hormones are already at that level. And just about anything, exercise, sex, food, movement, workouts, when to talk to your kids, you name it. But getting back to the whole idea of sleep, how do we know what it is and why is it important and what do we want to do about it? Look, sleep affects every organ system and every disease state. Literally everything you do better with a good night's sleep. There is nothing that you can do that you would do worse with sleep as a general guideline. So I always let people know your body won't let you sleep too much. That's a big question that people say to me. It's like, well, what happens if I go to sleep and my body wants to sleep for 9 hours or 10 hours or 11 hours, right? that's a pretty big red flag for me. That either means you're super duper sleep deprived, or you could have a sleep disorder, right? Like apnea or narcolepsy or something like that that's fucking up your sleep, or you could have depression, right? And depression could make you want to stay in bed for 9 or 10 hours at a time, right? And so thinking through this, you should fall asleep roughly the same time, but wake up at the exact same time or as close to it 7 days a week. And your body will then all of a sudden kind of kick into gear and everything starts to do it for itself. So you might find, Kien, that at certain times in your life, hey, I only needed 6 hours and 15 minutes of sleep. 3 years later, now I need 7 hours and 15 minutes of sleep because I had kids, or because I'm working out harder, or because my body's getting older, or whatever, right? There's a whole host of reasons why these things change over time. But I think if you look at those 3 metrics, which is the quantity, quality, and the chronotype, I think, but not in that order. I think it should go chronotype, quality, and then quantity. I think they all start to fall into place.
That's amazing. And let's dive in a little bit deeper. Is there any research that's demonstrating, I know this certainly anecdotally, that people that don't sleep just don't function very well. Like, their performance in all categories and their mood is also depressed.
And sleep deprivation, it affects different things differently, right? So from a physicality standpoint, here's a perfect example for guys out there who might be listening. Testosterone dumps. I mean, it dumps when you're not sleeping well. I had an NBA basketball player, and he was 22 years old, and he was not sleeping well at all. He was playing, he had the testosterone of a 33-year-old, okay? Wow. Like a 10-year difference in the NBA. It's not good. You're not going to make it very far in the NBA, right, if you got that. We know reaction time slows dramatically by almost 30%. You're a race car driver, you're done, right? Now, let's say you're just driving in the traffic in LA, you could be done too, right? And so, like, there's a lot of different kind of things to sort of think through that as a general idea set. But when you wake up, if you've gotten a good enough sleep.
I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. If you are, I just wanted to let you know, join our community. There's so many free resources and a great community of people that desire health, happiness, human potential, to have more in their life, more health, more energy. And when you have those 2 things together, you could create more happiness, more abundance, whether it be financial, romantic, all these things in your life. And if you're just starting out, you don't know where to go, just sign up for thrivestatestarter.com, because in there you're going to get a bundle of information that includes a longevity ebook, a longevity and performance resource guide, lecture notes that come from my keynotes at Google, at Fortune 500 companies, all the insights in that keynote in lecture slide form given to you. And then finally, breathwork. I share 3 powerful breathwork exercises to access calm, which really gives you clarity and peace during the day, to access energy if you need to wake up and really motivate yourself, and finally a breathwork routine that you could do every single morning so that you could be very intentional with how you create that day. You could find all this stuff delivered free to your inbox at thrivestatestarter.com. And our community is growing. If you want to be a part of a community of people that desire the Thrive State, that are really in Thrive State themselves, and help other people along with that, you could be a part of the community. You can get group coaching from me. We do breathwork sessions, meditation sessions, and you also get to drop in and participate in podcasts in the future. You could find more about the community at mythrivestate.com. That's mythrivestate.com. So check out those resources. You're not going to be disappointed, and please enjoy the remainder of this podcast. What do you think is really the cause? Is that our modern day lifestyle, the blue lights, the caffeine during the day?
I know what
you say are like the top 3 reasons why there's such an epidemic of sleep deprivation.
Okay, so I have to break this down because you gave me a nice big question, and now I'm going to crack it down to a few pieces. Awesome. So I think there's a couple of different types of sleep deprivation, and they're being caused by different things. So I mentioned it a little bit earlier in our discussion, but I think people being overweight and obese, that's driving a lot of sleep apnea. I'm not saying sleep apnea is only a big person's disease, because it's not. I have plenty of people that look like you and me that have sleep apnea. and that shouldn't be avoided. But being overweight, it affects everything, and it definitely affects your sleep. Number two is outside influences like caffeine. Caffeine's really the biggest offender. People don't know this, but caffeine has a half-life of 6 to 8 hours, right? And so all of a sudden, especially if you're a slow metabolizer, if you're in your 40s, 50s, and your metabolism starts to slow down, that caffeine could be on board for 10, 12, for half-life, right? Which means it definitely has an effect on your quality of sleep. So kind of thinking through that, I think, is another big important one. But the bottom line, it's anxiety. 75% of people not being able to fall asleep or stay asleep, I can assure you it's almost always anxiety. And it's not always the anxiety that you might think about, right? So I've kind of been thinking a lot about this, and this is kind of one of the first places to talk about it, so I think it'll be interesting, is I believe when we're talking about insomnia now, I think it's a safety issue for most people, right? So when you think about it, you're at your most vulnerable position you've ever been in, right? Your eyes are closed, it's dark, you have no idea what's going on, you're completely unconscious. If you don't feel safe, I'm not so sure you're going to be able to fall asleep, right? And that physical state could be physical. It could be emotional, right? Are you lying next to a bed partner that you really don't like, or that could beat you up, or that you're having a hard time with? It could be fiscal, right? Financial safety. Oh shit, how do I pay the bills, right? What's going on here? But something in your mind is causing you to feel unsafe. And that lack of safety raises your heart rate and anxiety. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but the number one metric for sleep is you want a heart rate of 60 or below in order to enter into a state of unconsciousness. If you're lying in bed worried about your bills and your partner and your kids and all, I can almost assure you your heart rate isn't below 60, right? And so I think between being overweight on the apnea side, anxious on the insomnia side, and then the environmental of caffeine, I think, is a biggie. The other big one, we can't not address it, is alcohol. You know, alcohol is the number one sleep aid in the world. More people drink themselves to sleep than any single other thing out there that they do. And it's terrible because, alcohol makes you feel sleepy, and it gives you a little bit more stage 3, stage 4 sleep, but you start waking up throughout the night. It almost completely obliterates REM. You got to pee all night long. So you wake up and you kind of feel like crap. You're dehydrated. It's kind of a mess. And so I think those 3 areas are what I would say are your kind of big blind spots that a lot of people kind of don't think about, right? Now, can blue light affect you? Sure it can. But I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. Running around with blue light blocking glasses on every single night probably isn't going to cure your insomnia. But if you have a 14-year-old who plays video games for 4 hours before they go to bed, you damn well better have them have the blue light blocking glasses on, because they're sure as hell not going to be able to fall asleep after 4. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's very situation specific, right? So, you have to look at what your area is, what's having effect on your sleep, and then kind of move forward. Somebody said something to me the other day that I thought was really interesting. They said, I have really structured days, and my days are quite successful, but I have almost no structure at night, and my nights are a mess. Yeah. And I'm like, bro, let's get some structure, right? So it's bedtime, wake up time, bedtime routine. A lot of people don't think about this, but sleep is not an on-off switch, right? It's slowly pulling your foot off the gas and slowly putting your foot on the brake. Like, there's a process. And I tell people all the time, you need runway to land the plane, okay? Like, you just need some time, right? And if you're falling asleep while you're watching TV, then you go in the bathroom, brush your teeth, wash your face, and get in bed, you're wide awake at that point. There's no interest in going to sleep at that point. So really thinking through your evenings and having some structure, I think, can be extremely helpful.
You mentioned anxiety being a major cause of insomnia, and I can't agree with you more. So many people are thinking about, you said, the bills, the relationships not working out, all these things that keep them up at night is a mark of safety. This being a mental health conference, do you find that, making sure that there are some stress reduction techniques for the anxiety throughout the day? And have you found any particularly good ones for evening routines that you help your clients through to really help lessen the anxiety prior to sleep?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we can't talk about sleep and not talk about mental health. It's just, they're just too intertwined together. And I like the fact that you're focusing in on anxiety, because it's a big deal. Yeah, if you don't manage your stress well during the daytime, where else is it going to go but in your night, right? Stress doesn't magically disappear. If you figure that one out, I want to know about that one, bro. But you know what I'm saying? Like, you got to do something to manage your stress. And stress comes in all kinds of forms throughout the day. My big stress management, I have 2. One is I'm in the gym every single day, usually doing weights, because that's what seems to do a little bit of cardio to warm up. And then I have about a 60-minute compound muscle routine where I don't do isolated work. I do more across the body type of stuff, which I love. Then I do a sauna, slight cold shower, and I'm off. And that gets me for the day, right? I'm good to go from terms of stress relief for the day. But let's be fair. Not everybody's got 90 minutes to 120 minutes every morning to go do something like that. So finding something for just you to reduce your stress is critical, critical, critical. So like if I'm traveling, I like to meditate during the daytime. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, Ken, and you know this about me probably from past times, but I'm not the best meditator. I'm not the best person who's sitting around in a room doing nothing. That's just kind of not my gig, at least historically. But I found a tool, no financial whatever with these guys. It's a headband. It's called Muse. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Muse. Dude, this thing is amazing because it gives real-time feedback about when you hit your alpha state. So you put it on and there's an app and you just kind of relax. And as you're getting more relaxed, the volume of the music gets lower. So you're getting instant feedback. Then these little birds start chirping. And when the birds start chirping, you've hit your alpha state. Bro, I did this every single day, a year and a half, and it was awesome. I mean, I loved it. And especially at times when I'm just like super stressed out, I keep this in my backpack. And after a while, I don't even need this. I can just kind of set myself up and do a little meditation that way. Movement is also a big factor for relieving stress. They say that sitting is the new smoking now, right? So standing desks, I think, are something that are worthwhile. 15-minute breaks every 3 hours, I think, are important. My other big stress relief, this is going to sound ridiculous, but it really works, is my dogs. I sit on the floor and I play with my dogs every day. And it's awesome. They love it. And so do I. I mean, when else do you get unconditional love every single day, right? Your partner's not going to do that. Your kids are not going to do that. Don't get me wrong. Partner and kids are all great, but a dog or an animal that's right there for you, it's the best. So, getting some of that emotional stress relief aside from just the physical stress relief, I think is super duper helpful. And then again, having a routine before bed, I think is worthwhile. That has always been helpful for me. Some people like to read. Some people like to stretch. Some people like to watch TV. I'm probably the only sleep doctor in the universe that says it's okay to watch television to fall asleep. As long as you got a timer built in, I don't think I really care anymore. I mean, so many people get so wound up about some of the silliest things. Like my wife, she falls asleep with the TV on every single night. Every night. We've been married for 23 years, bro. Do you think I'm going to break that habit? Because I don't think I am, right? And so you have to kind of pick your battles. But if it was really bugging me that much, I move to the guest room, right? Or if the dogs are snoring, I'll move to the guest room. That's another thing that people need to think about is there's this term going around called sleep divorce. I don't like the word divorce too much, just has too many connotations, but maybe changing my schedule a little around. Like you've got a different schedule than your bed partner snores or something like that. Sunday through Thursday, sleep in a different room, get a good night's sleep. Friday and Saturday night, go back with your partner, be intimate, have some fun, relax, do your thing. It actually works out, pretty well, just kind of understanding how all of those things kind of work. Now, you asked the second part of your question is, what do you do in the middle of the night if you wake up and you can't fall back asleep because you're so anxious? What do you do there, Michael? So there, I like breathing techniques in particular. Those are some of my favorite. I know you know about these, but I like the 4-7-8 breathing.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's one of my favorites. I believe it was developed by Dr. Andrew Weil for the Navy SEALs. And it was so that it's kind of crazy, the story. So it's for snipers. And so it's for downrange. If you're shooting downrange, if your heart is beating too fast, you can change the trajectory of the bullet. So he was teaching them how to shoot in between heartbeats, and they needed to drop their heart rate down to below 60 in order to do that. So this technique does it. So for folks out there who may not know what it is, breathe in slowly for a count of 4, hold it for a count of 7, breathe out for a count of 8. It's really, that's all it is. It's very simple. You do 7 to 10 cycles of that. It just dumps your heart rate and it lowers your anxiety. And you can't think about the thing that you were so damn anxious about before because you're counting and you're breathing and you're making sure you're doing it all right. And then the natural sleep process takes over. So that's one of the things that I definitely do with people. Another one is you can use distraction techniques. There's a whole host of different ones, whether it's a word game or something called cognitive shuffling, where you think of a word, you think of the word card, it ends with D, and then you think of a word that starts with D, and you just keep going on this boring mind puzzle. The key is it's got to be boring. You don't want it to be too challenging because then all of a sudden you're having fun. The other big one, you're going to laugh at this one, the new counting sheep. is to count backwards from 300 by threes. Okay. Try it. It's not easy, right? So 300, 297, 294, 291, 288, right? Yeah. So it's mathematically, it's so complicated. You can't think of anything else. And it's so damn boring. You're out like a light.
So I think you mentioned this before, but you're okay with like leaving the nest, maybe distracting yourself and then coming back, right? There
on occasion, yeah, it will depend.
Sleep performance anxiety, right? When you're just trying to
sleep.
Oh,
yeah. Well, and here's the other thing. Like, let's say you're sound asleep and all of a sudden your partner gets up, goes to the bathroom, wakes your ass up, right? And they snore. You're doomed at this point, right? Because all you are is angry. They woke you up. Now they're snoring. You were minding your own business, peacefully asleep, right? Head over to the guest room, okay? And don't be shy about it and don't be upset about it. Like, don't be upset with your partner. Here's your partner. They've been your partner probably for a while. So like this is new news that they snore or that they wake up in the middle of the night. So, don't give them a hard time. Just find a good place for you to sleep. You'd be surprised at how actually that helps with marriages more than it hurts.
Beautiful. Oh my God. So much wisdom here. Look, you can't separate sleep from mental health. And what you gave us today is really the best foundations there. Definitely check out Chrono Quiz. Everyone would want to do this. This is going to help your sleep out so much. Dr. Breus, where can people find you?
So I'm pretty easy to find. I own thesleepdoctor.com. So you can head on over to my website. I also have that handle on all the social properties. So Facebook, I guess it's called X now. It's no longer called Twitter. And TikTok, I do videos on TikTok, which are a lot of fun. And we do different videos in different places. So that way you get different information. So if you're looking for sleep info, definitely check it out. Also, I have a special gift for the VIPs.
Yes, you do.
I didn't want to forget.
What are you giving our VIPs?
So for folks out there who buy the whole program and do the VIP thing, which I recommend that you do, I created and this is the only time I'm giving this away, is a supplement guide. So for people out there who are interested in sleep-related supplements, I've reviewed 10 different well-known sleep supplements. I give the dosages. I tell you how they work. I tell you when you should use them, all that kind of stuff. We're going to give those people, if they do the VIP routine, they're going to get the VIP reading material. And we think that has a lot to do with sleep supplementation. So I think you guys will learn a lot.
Dr. Michael Breus, thank you so much for your wisdom, sharing everything you know about sleep and mental health. We appreciate you being on.
Well, it is my honor to be here. I'm so excited that you're doing this mental health gathering of all these people and getting monies together for these great charitable organizations and all that stuff. So thank you, Kien, for thinking of me. Always here for you and always happy to get involved.
Thanks again.
You bet.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Thrive State podcast. And if you're finding that this content is really helping you and your family members, please consider supporting our mission and our cause of elevating health, happiness, and human potential for people all over the world. You can do so by making sure that you subscribe to this podcast, sharing it with your friends and family members, and leaving us a 5-star review wherever podcasts are heard. All these things are going to really help elevate the show and to give us the resources to continue to bring more content just like this to yourself as well as the people that you love. If you haven't already, you might want to consider joining our community. We actually have a community where people get to engage with me in group sessions where we do breath work, meditation, where we do challenges together, really to be able to get us access to health, happiness, human potential so that we can have longevity and performance in our life as well. You can check out our community at mythrivestate.com. That's mythrivestate.com. And if you haven't already, pick up a copy of my book, Thrive State. It really gives you all the tools, the pillars that you need to create a blueprint to control the energetics of your life. Who are you? How you show up in the world? The choices that you consistently make create an energy in your body, and you can control this. And when you can control that, you also control the messages you give to your DNA that gives you access, again, to optimal health, longevity, and peak performance. And let me also just share a free gift to you. If you haven't already, please pick up my longevity and performance bundle where I share lecture notes, ebooks, breathwork exercises, and longevity and performance resources at thrivestatestarter.com. Thank you so much for being a part of this community. Thank you for helping us grow. Remember always, my friends, that you are your best medicine.